بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ولا أما بعد. First of all, Jazakumullah khairan for the organizers for organizing this conference on such an important topic. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of your efforts, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to witness the month of Ramadan, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this month of Ramadan um, as a mean to expiate our sins and shortcomings, inshallah, so that we can meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without any shortcomings on our part, biiznillah. Even though, subhanallah, the topic which was given to me is to cover the summary of Surah Yusuf from psychological perspective, which is difficult because Surah Yusuf is so big, and even multiple hours of session won't be sufficient. So how these few minutes can be enough just to summarize that entire discussion. So what I will do, I'll just treat this session as an appetizer, as an introduction, and I'm going to mention few points. But before that, before highlighting the few aspects of psychological benefits in terms of understanding our relationship, especially with the focus on Surah Yusuf, um, I do want to say that whenever we are trying to engage in talks like this, like psychological benefits of Surah Yusuf, psychological way of looking at the Quran and Hadith, um, I do want to add five disclaimers or six disclaimers. And I hope that inshallah this will serve as a reminder whenever we are engaging with the Quran and Sunnah text from a psychological lens. Even though it will be little academic for the first time, if you are listening to this for the first time, how to engage to Quran and Sunnah from psychological lens. But I do believe that this is extremely important as we are witnessing the flood of psychology coming. And people do not have proper means to navigate that. So we have two extremes, either assimilate or isolationist mentality. So I think these five, six principles will help, inshallah. Um, so you have to do few things if you are engaging with Quran and Sunnah from psychological, Western psychological or psychological issues. First is you have to make sure that you have to use Islamic lens to gauge and take benefit from rational science like psychology, and it's not the other way around. And I have to say this that I had this issue almost 10 years ago. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took me out of that disaster. And I have seen a lot of preachers, a lot of influencers, and a lot of Muslim brothers and sisters who are sincere, and a lot of therapists who pay attention to the presentation more than the research. They are struggling with this, that they have psychological lens when they're looking at the Quran and Hadith, and they're adjusting Quran and Hadith based on their psychological lens instead of other way around. It's like fixing square pegs in circle hole. This should not happen. Like for example, in USA you have a famous DSM 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In DSM 5, they say shyness is considered as a social phobia. And they would say shyness is a social anxiety disorder. Now, if you were going to see a Muslim psychologist, psychotherapist, therapist, or generally a brother or sister studying social science and psychology, um, if they were going to see things like this coming from DSM, then they would say why Islam have said al-haya min al-iman. So they were going to have issues in digesting because of the DSM report. But what they fail to understand is that they cannot understand and they cannot digest whatever is coming from Western psychology without putting Sharia compliant guardrails. Because this particular thing in DSM 5, that shyness is social phobia, goes against our epistemology, goes against the basic understanding of the Quran and Sunnah. In terms of conflict, what you have to do, who are going to have the primary calculus, whether it's Quran or Sunnah, or psychology. That's the first thing. So use Islamic lens to gauge psychology, not the other way around. This is the first advice I will give, and this is coming from my own experience. So I would say that learn from my mistakes, don't learn from or don't make a mistake so that you will eventually learn from your mistake. And by the time you might do that, you are going to destroy some lives. Second, is that second point or second disclaimer for the people engaging in psychology and extracting from Quran and Sunnah benefits is that do not approach modern psychology with a slave mindset or with a defeatist mentality, with the blind follower mindset, because you will going to become maximum a good student with that approach. Don't be naive, since in modern psychology, psychology is from the social sciences, and they will teach you, especially in applied psychology, a lot of Western ideology, Western standards of normal and abnormal behavior, and Western philosophical assumptions will come under the garb of modern psychology because they are social sciences. They will compete with Islamic Quran and Hadithic metaphysics. So it competes with your metaphysics as a Muslim. So you cannot approach this as just with the slave mindset. You have to put Sharia compliant guardrails. The moment you are, the problem is that the moment you are exposed to fancy terminologies like epistemology and ontology and teleology and behavioral sciences and cognitive sciences, they are attractive terms if you are exposed for the first time and you want to use it. You are, because of our lack of epistemological humility, you are so eager to look more informed, because we lack humility. You are eager to look more intellectual. This is the phase when you can actually easily get mesmerized and change your Islamic lens to a psychological lens. So have some humility, have complete trust in your creator, as he knows your psyche more than Sigmund Freud. So get benefits while having Sharia compliant guardrails. So that's the second approach, the second point. Third point I would like to remind myself and to everyone before we can start is that whenever you are studying modern psychology, balance yourself with tazkiyah discourse, as that's the divine study of the soul. Psychology in Greek is actually study of soul, علم النفس in Arabic. So basically, Islam have a complete science for علم النفس, for study of soul, and that is tazkiyah discourse, Sharia compliant tasawwuf for tazkiyah discourse. And that is even reconcilable with the Sharia because that's a branch of the Sharia. So you cannot engage in modern psychology to help and to understand Muslim behavior without understanding tazkiyah discourse properly and deeply. So that will going to help you a lot. Um, Otherwise, the fine lines which are getting blurred between the self-confidence and arrogance, it's very obvious that the people are paying more attention to psychology, but less attention to the tazkiyah discourse. Fourth disclaimer I would like to say, those people who are engaging with the Quran and Sunnah from psychological perspective, is that remember that we have basic anthropological difference between Islam and modern psychology. And for anyone engaging in Quran and Sunnah from psychological perspective, they cannot ignore this. They cannot ignore this. Basic difference include, we in Islam believe that human being have a body along with the soul, and we actually are a soul with a body and not the body with the soul. The modern psychology, the entire emphasis and focus is on the body, the gluttony, the sexual desires, and but there is no focus on soul. So they believe in our mechanical body, like you treat your car, like you treat your machine, they'll treat their body like that, but no emphasis on soul. Even the yoga and mediation exercise in modern psychology, it's not exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala define as the soul nourishment exercises. So it's very symbolic. Then second anthropological difference between us, or how we define human being, and their psychological behavior versus how modern psychology will consider, is that they believe in dunya but they don't believe in akhirah. This is extremely important. all of our motivation and our drive usually drive from akhirah-centered worldview. There's a punishment in hell, there is a reward in heaven and paradise, but that is ignored in most of the modern psychology framework, and that have a significant difference in how you approach social behavior. And third is about self versus Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we believe in human self, but we also believe in the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And with that, so many things change. In modern day psychology have converted things into child-centered parenting. It's actually a gift of modern day psychology because they have removed Allah, they have removed any higher authority, they have removed parents, they have removed the teachers, and they have said everything have to confirm the feelings of the self and the self of the child. That is coming from anthropological point of view. So if you are engaging in modern psychology and trying to engage in Quran Sunnah from modern psychology perspective, you have to do it because it's important, but make sure you know these anthropological differences that believe in body, but soul is more important than the body, which modern psychology doesn't believe from the Islamic perspective. Ruh. Dunya is important, but akhirah is more important. وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. Modern psychology doesn't believe in akhirah. Self is important, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more important. Because otherwise, if you will only pay attention to self, but if you don't pay attention to Allah, then وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ. You will forget yourself. Allah will make you forget yourself if you will disregard Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the modern day psychology, like Sigmund Freud and Jacques Rousseau and all these people, they would say you can find your true self, you can find your super ego if you will going to rebel against the morality of the society. In Islam, we say if you put yourself if you make yourself subservient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then only you will find your true self. Otherwise, you'll forget your true self. وَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ. So it's a head on. It's not just diversity of opinions. This particular anthropological difference between how modern psychology see human being versus we in Islam see human being, this particular point, there's a head on. You need to pick one. And obviously, as a Muslim, we cannot ignore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just because we are mesmerized with the modern psychology terms. Having said that, we have to obviously take benefit from the rational science under the guardrail of the traditional sciences. Otherwise, Freud perspective cannot be taught without any filters to Muslims. Freud used to think religion is an illusion and intelligent men have to give up on religion, and you cannot reconcile with this. I'm actually the proponent, I'm teaching that we should have a synthesis approach, but there are a few concepts where you cannot have reconciliation. So you have to make the smart choices. And the last two things before we can start is that more value is given in our postmodern world to psychology or biology or empirical biological medical sciences. So generally, psychological lenses are being forced in our times in last few decades more than other lenses. When whether bio and then when it comes to biological lens or religious lenses, they are blurred and they are forced to follow psychological standards. So in the dichotomy of the mind and body, because metaphysics is not coming from religion, nowadays people are paying more attention to mind because of over psychologization, even more than empiricism, more than biology. You have to understand this when millions of dollars are being given in an industry, you cannot just ignore this fact. You have to follow the money to see where the issue is coming. And the last thing, I'm trying to make it very brief so that we don't have a imbalanced understanding of this entire looking Quran and Sunnah from psychological perspective. The final thing before we can start is we have to, and this is a little, you might disagree, that balance, if you are studying in a rational science psychology, then you have to balance with philosophy under Sharia guardrails, because psychology is all about heart or feelings or behavior or feelings, and then philosophy is all about mind. The people who go deep in philosophy, they are very dry because of their overemphasis on intellectual rationalization. The people who study psychology, emotions, feelings, all these things, Islam is actually such a beautiful religion is because it just actually merges both under Sharia compliant guardrails, mind and body, mind and feelings. So you need to focus on heart and mind to get the proper intellectual and emotional muscles working. Otherwise, psychology at the expense of philosophy or philosophy at the expense of psychology will bring an imbalanced personality. And you might feel this when you will go deep in one sense and not the other. Um, with that, inshallah, let's quickly go through one or two things which will going to help us, inshallah, in terms of understanding Surah Yusuf. By the way, if you see camera is a little tilted, I'm sitting on my couch. We just moved into this new house yesterday, and if you don't know, if I don't know how many of you are listening this from America, but in America, if you are um, moving is actually let's say mother of all these stress. So please make dua. So everything I can see boxes around me. I have one couch, and that's why you would see camera a little tilted. Okay, let's start, inshallah. So Surah Yusuf. Um, why Surah Yusuf, especially when talking about psychology? Because it talks about a lot of character and social behavior. So instead of going to different character, analyzing them from psychological perspective, let's just pick one theme and go through 9, 10 psychological aspects. And I'm assuming that most of the audience know the story of Surah Yusuf at the basic level. The brothers who kidnapped Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, the woman in the Egypt who seduced Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. So let's pick one theme, and we're going to see how beautifully Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching and addressing the different social behavior while correcting us. And there's so many spiritual lessons coming out of it. So nowadays there's a big word called toxic, toxicity. And obviously how we define is very different than how it is just defined in English language. We have to put Sharia compliant guardrails. Anything which harms you or takes you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's toxic. So Surah Yusuf talks about toxic men and toxic women. Surah Yusuf talks about a group of toxic men, brothers, until they will repent, and toxic woman, minister's wife, and then the wives of other ministers who were corrupt, toxic woman. So let's see how Surah Yusuf addresses psyche of these individual, and then let's apply this into our life. I'm going to be very quick, inshallah, because we have only 13 minutes left. First, both toxic men and toxic women, as mentioned in Surah Yusuf, the brothers and the woman in the Egypt, they will engage in extreme actions to harm others in an attempt to seek someone's attention. So for toxic men and for toxic women, they will even harm others to seek someone attention. The brothers will harm Yusuf because they wanted attention of father, and the Yusuf and the minister's wife actually were going to harm Yusuf and their own reputation because they wanted to seek attention of Yusuf. So in the end of the day, the toxic man and woman, even though they wanted to seek someone's attention, but they will engage in some extreme actions to harm themselves and to harm others. But at the end of the day, they will only harm themselves. That's the first psychological benefit we can get from it. Second, from Surah Yusuf, we can learn the psyche of toxic men and toxic women is that both will lie excessively to achieve their goals. Subhanallah. If you see brothers lie throughout and women of the Egypt also lie excessively, emphatically. Third, both toxic men and toxic women in Surah Yusuf serve as a test of practicing Muslim. Means if you're a leader in the Muslim community, then either from the angle of lovers or haters, you will be tested by toxic lovers and toxic haters. So if you are a leader in Muslim community, you will be tested by both. And remember, both of them are toxic. The brother's test for Yusuf alayhi salam was the test of the hater. The woman test for Yusuf was the test of the lover. Now, our problem is that we recognize that toxic behavior when it comes from haters, right? Um, but we don't recognize the toxic behavior or harmful behavior when the lover or our fan on social media wants to distract us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We learn from Surah Yusuf that haters can destroy our dunya, like brothers, by their toxic behavior. But you know what? Lovers can destroy your akhirah along with your dunya if you don't pay attention. So Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam's severe test was actually coming from the woman, even though the brother's test was also a test, and both of them were toxic. Um, One more thing, I think number four, right? Yeah. The test of toxic men, brothers, is often through physical abuse. Since Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made men strong, they have the jalal, made men stronger than women. So the toxic men test will be of the physical abuse. And they have to use, and because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have given men more strength, they have to use it properly, instead of abusing the physical strength. While the test of the toxic woman is through the beauty, sex, and lust and manipulation. Since Allah gave them power of Jamal, not Jamal as compared to men, so they have more beauty. So they should use it and not abuse it like a toxic woman. So you will see both of these cases. Brothers are abusing their physical power, and women, in the minister's wife case, they are abusing their beauty. Both are manifesting their toxicity to seek attention. This is sign of a toxic behavior, subhanAllah. Then both toxic men and toxic women in Surah Yusuf, we can feel that they are craving for attention, and in doing so, they will um, not only harm themselves, but they will be self-destructive. And this shows that they have a, how this point is unique from number one is that this is a sign of a serious self-esteem issues. Whenever you disconnect yourself from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you want to crave and you want to get attention. You will have this crave and you will going to get, you will going to do anything in the book to get the attention of others, which shows that you have serious self-esteem issues. Sixth, despite their ability to exercise power, both toxic men and women remain unhappy. This is important. You know, brothers kidnapped Yusuf, uh, and wives of the minister put Yusuf in prison. They both have achieved their goal, but still they were insecure, still they were unhappy until they did tawbah, until they brought Allah back in their life. Meanwhile, Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, he, whether it's in the well or in the prison, he remained content. The Allah factor is the key to true happiness, subhanAllah. If you have Allah, even in the prison, you will be happy. Otherwise, if you don't have Allah, even if you're living in a free world, you will be imprisoned by your emotions. Um, Seventh, both the toxic men and toxic women in Surah Yusuf were pathological liars, fabricating these stories to cover up their wrongdoing and justifying for their evil crimes. Um, Eight, abuse of power, whether physical, financial, political, or sexual, was a common trait among the toxic men and toxic women. Um, Ninth, both toxic men and toxic women in Surah Yusuf, we can see that they are egocentric, they are self-centric. They focus only in fulfilling their desires without considering the suffering they are causing to Yusuf alayhi salam and others, or to Yaqub alayhi salam. So they are saying that I want this right now. This is me, myself, ego. When you are ego-centered, you are not worried about the others around you or the harm you are causing them. You just want things my way or highway. That's what we can see, a behavior which is coming from toxic men and toxic women. 10th, at the end of Surah Yusuf, the toxic men and the toxic women both repented and they became righteous. This is why we believe in Tawbah culture and we don't believe in cancel culture. This is very important. We don't believe in cancel culture. We believe in Tawbah culture. We Muslims need to learn this, especially in the social media realm. who are canceling each other for the uh, issues, but they are ignoring the good which the other person have to offer. I would say add few more. One more point you can add, 11th, that if you are not a toxic man or woman, if you are not the person who reflects toxicity, then from Surah Yusuf we can say then regardless of where you are, whether in Egypt or in Canaan, in the lap of his father, whether in prison or in the castle, you will continue to create an impact in society. If you are toxic man or woman, um, instead of creating an effect, you will just blame others about not doing anything. So whether you are in Pakistan, Saudi, in America, make an impact. Don't complain about your environment. Because Yusuf Ali Salatu Wasalam started his da'wah when he was in the prison. He did not wait for the mic time, for the followers. Just make an impact wherever you are. I remember, subhanAllah, one of the poems of 𝗟𝐷𝐵𝗵 𝗵𝗂𝐿. He actually said, Subhanallah, पाक है गर्द वतन से सरे दामाद तेरा, पाक है गर्द वतन, गर्द मीन्स मिट्टी, पाक है गर्द वतन से सरे दामाद तेरा, तू वो यूसुफ है कि हर मिस्र है कनान तेरा. He said in such a powerful language, he said that the dirt of the nation should be removed. You should be cleaned. You should clean yourself from the dirt of the nation state, because whether you are in Canaan or in Egypt or in Pakistan or Saudi or in America, you have to make an impact, because these nation states should not bound you or bound your talent. And that's what we are learning. A toxic man or woman doesn't complain about the circumstance. He will going to keep making an impact. Um, the last few things I can add here to before we can end is that when seeing you, we are done with the toxic individual. So just one or two things. Um, Seeing Yusuf Ali Salatu Wasalam from psychological perspective, we can see that we also learn psyche of groupism, or psyche of partisanship, or psyche of mob mentality is addressed as well. That when brothers said that نحن عصبة إن أبانا لفي ضلال مبين, that we are a powerful group and dad still loves Yusuf and his brother more than us. Indeed, dad is in clear misguidance. They are saying that dad, which is Yaqub, is in clear misguidance because we are powerful group, which shows us that the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the word usba, which the group which is based on prejudice. When you have a mob mentality, groupism is a blinder. Groupism can blind you as a mental disability. When you are struggling with groupism, even as guided as Yaqub alayhi salam will look like that he is making a mistake. And this can happen easily to the people who are struggling with groupism, that people outside of your group will seem like these are deviant people, they are misguided people. Only people of our group have the copyrights for the guidance, and this can be a problem. And psyche of a liar teenager who is raised in a Muslim background is also mentioned in this surah. We don't have time, but when the brothers kidnap Yusuf and throw him in the well, he says, تَكُونُ مِن بَعْدِهِ قَوْمًا صَالِحِينَ. Let's do the sin and we'll do tawbah. Let's kidnap Yusuf and we'll do tawbah. This is a mindset of a liar teenager, toxic teenager who is raised in a Muslim background, but he's messed up. Then psyche of a great person, a righteous person. And this is where I just want to end, is that uh, Yusuf Ali Salatu Wasalam, when he was in the prison, prisoners used to say, Inna naraka min al-muhsinin, that you are a person with an amazing character. And later on, he became minister. Such a power, such a prestige. But still, Quran says that people used to say, Inna naraka min al-muhsinin. Same thing, you have an amazing character, whether in the prison or in the minister's house, in the castle with the authority. Many times power corrupts you. For Yusuf Ali Salatu Wasalam, when you are not toxic, when you are a great person, when you are a righteous person, power doesn't corrupt you. Whether you are in the streets as a college student and now you're a big shot, you'll be the same person. Power won't corrupt you. It's a sign of a great leader. And there are many, many other things, but because it's 7:38 here in Dallas, I don't know the local time in US, I had some other points. But let's end this and conclude this, inshallah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this beneficial, inshallah, and to forgive our shortcomings, inshallah ta'ala.